Who pays title insurance in Florida? A clear guide for buyers and sellers. In Florida's fast-moving housing market, few closing costs generate as much confusion as title insurance. Buyers often assume they will be responsible for it. Sellers sometimes expect the same. Yet in many Florida transactions, the answer depends less on law and more on local custom. Understanding who typically pays for title insurance in Florida can prevent last-minute disputes and help both parties negotiate more effectively. In competitive markets such as Pinellas County, where buyers and sellers continue to navigate pricing shifts and insurance concerns, clarity on closing costs matters more than ever. What is title insurance? Title insurance protects against financial loss tied to defects in a property's ownership history. That can include unpaid liens, recording errors, undisclosed heirs, or fraud that predates the current transaction. There are two primary types. Owner's title insurance, which protects the buyer's equity. Lender's title insurance, which protects the mortgage lender. If a buyer is financing a home, the lender's policy is required. The owner's policy is optional but widely recommended. Unlike other insurance products, title insurance is paid as a one-time premium at closing and covers the property for as long as it is owned. Florida is a customary state. Florida law does not require either party to pay for the owner's title policy. Instead, the responsibility is guided by regional custom. In much of Florida, including Pinellas County, it is customary for the seller to pay for the owner's title insurance policy and to select the title company that handles the closing. However, this is a negotiable item. The purchase contract ultimately controls who pays and who chooses the closing agent. Why sellers often pay. There is a practical reason behind the custom. When the seller pays for the owner's policy, they typically retain the right to choose the title company. Sellers often prefer this arrangement because it allows them to manage the closing process and associated fees. In competitive markets, offering to cover title insurance can also make a listing more attractive. In areas such as Clearwater, St. Petersburg, and the broader Pinellas County region, where buyers carefully compare total transaction costs, covering this expense can reduce friction. What does title insurance cost in Florida? Florida regulates title insurance rates. Premiums are based on the purchase price and follow a standard rate structure statewide. As an example, $5.75 per $1,000 of value up to $100,000. $5 per $1,000 between $100,000 and $1 million. On a $400,000 home, the owner's title policy typically costs a few $1,000s. The lender's policy is separate and usually paid by the buyer, regardless of who pays for the owner's policy. When buyers pay instead, there are situations where buyers assume the cost. In new construction transactions, builders often require buyers to pay title insurance and use the builder's preferred closing company. In strong sellers' markets, buyers may offer to cover title insurance to make their offer more competitive. In cash transactions, terms are often more flexible and negotiated case by case. In Pinellas County's evolving market, where inventory has gradually increased compared with the height of the pandemic surge, negotiation leverage has shifted slightly. As conditions balance, title insurance costs may once again become a point of discussion rather than a fixed expectation. The role of the contract. The standard Florida Realtors contract includes a section specifying who pays for title insurance and which party selects the closing agent. Once signed, that agreement governs the transaction. Both buyers and sellers should review this section carefully before executing a contract. Misunderstandings about title insurance often surface late in the closing process when changing terms can delay settlement. Why this matters in today's market. With rising insurance premiums, property tax considerations, and increasing scrutiny around condo and coastal properties, Florida buyers are paying closer attention to total closing costs. Title insurance may represent a relatively small percentage of the purchase price, but it remains a meaningful expense. In markets such as Pinellas County, where median home prices remain elevated compared to pre-2020 levels, even modest closing costs can affect affordability calculations. For sellers, understanding customary practices helps position a property competitively. For buyers, clarity allows for accurate budgeting and stronger negotiations. The bottom line. In most Florida counties, including Pinellas County, sellers traditionally pay for the owner's title insurance policy. Buyers typically pay for the lender's policy if financing the purchase. However, title insurance is negotiable. The final responsibility depends on what is written in the purchase agreement. As with all closing costs, transparency early in the transaction reduces surprises later. In Florida real estate, knowing local custom is helpful, but understanding the contract is essential.